All right, we're reading Breathing Underwater with Richard Rohr. It's a book he wrote on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and the relationship with spirituality. I previously read the introduction, and now we're at chapter 1. I'll do chapter 1 and 2, I think, in this video. If you want to play it faster than what I'm reading, you can change the speed on your video to 1.25, and my voice will still sound quite human. And you'll go through the content a little faster. So chapter 1, Powerlessness. The first step in the AA program is we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol or addictions, that our lives had become unmanageable. And here's a couple of verses from the Bible that will support this step as being biblical or spiritual. Like a weaver, you roll up my life and cut it from the loom. From dawn to night, you are watching my failure. I cry aloud until the morning, but like a lion, you crush all my bones. I twitter like a swallow. I moan like a dove. That's Isaiah 38, verse 12 to 14. Here's another verse. I cannot understand my own behavior. I fail to carry out the very things that I want to. And I find myself doing the very things that I hate. For although the will to do what is good is in me, the performance is not. Romans 7, verse 15 and 18. And when Jesus looked at the crowds, he felt sorry for them because they were harassed and dejected like sheep without a shepherd. Matthew 9, verse 36. I must be upfront with you. I do not really understand why God created the world this way. I do not know why power is at best power is at its best in weakness, as Paul says, or it is when I am weak that I'm strong, 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9 and 10. It surely seems like God is some kind of trickster. Perhaps the divine is playing games with us. God seems to have hidden holiness and wholeness in a secret place where only the humble will find it. Some topsy-turvy God has decided that those on the bottom will be revealed as the true top, and those who try from the top will find nothing of substance there. Why such a disguise? Why such a game of hidden hide and seek? God's greatest surprise and constant disguise. All I know is that it matches my own observations. I cannot pretend to understand God, but this is what I see. People who have moved from seeming success to seeming success seldom understand success at all, except a very limited version of their own. People who fail to do it right by even their own definition of right are those who often break through to enlightenment and compassion. It is still a mystery to me and will still be a mystery for you, even if you read this book to the end. The big difference, and it is big, is that you will hopefully be able to accept and even revel in this cosmic economy of grace. It's God's greatest surprise and God's constant disguise, but you only know it to be true by going through it and coming out at the other side yourself. You cannot know it by just going to church or reading scripture or listening to someone else talk about it, even if you agree with them. Until you bottom out and come to the limits of your own fuel supply, there's no reason for you to switch to a higher octane or of fuel. For that is what is happening. Why would you? You will not learn to actively draw upon a larger source until your usual resources are depleted and revealed as wanting. In fact, you will not even know there is a larger source until your own sources and resources fill you. Until and unless there is a person, a situation, an event, an idea, a conflict, or a relationship that you cannot manage, that you will never find the true messenger. So God makes sure that several things will come your way that you cannot manage on your own. Self-made people and all heroic spiritualities will try to manufacture an even stronger self by willpower and determination, to put them back in charge and seem in control. Usually, most people admire this, not realizing the unbending, sometimes proud, and eventually rigid personality that will be a long-term result. They will then need to continue in this pattern of self-created success and defenses. This pushy response does not normally create loving people, but just people in control and in deeper need of control. Eventually, the game is unsustainable unless you make others, even your whole family, pay the price for your own aggression and self-assertions, which is the common pattern. More commonly, more Christians whittle down the great gospel to some moral issue over which they can feel totally triumphant and superior, and which usually asks nothing of them personally. The ego always insists on moral high ground, or as Paul brilliantly puts it, sin takes advantage of commandments to mislead me, and through obeying commandments kills me. Romans 7, verse 11 and 13. This is a really quite extraordinary piece of insight on Paul's part, on which I would not believe myself were the disguise not so common. Celibate priest focusing on birth control and abortion as the core of evil heterosexuals, seeing gay marriages as the ultimate threat to society, liberals invested in some current political correctness while living lives of rather total isolation from the actual suffering of the world. Bible thumpers ignoring most of all the Bible when it asks them to change, a nation of immigrants being anti-immigrant, etc. All right, I'm going to read that again, and I'll probably cut it out from my video. More commonly, many Christians whittle down the great gospel to some moral issue over which they can feel totally triumphant and superior, and which usually asks nothing of them personally. The ego always insists on moral high ground, or as Paul brilliantly puts it, sin takes advantage of commandments to mislead me, and through obeying commandments, it kills me. Romans 7, verse 11 and 13. This is a really quite extraordinary piece of insight on Paul's part, on which I could not believe myself were the disguise not so common. For example, celibate priests focusing on birth control and abortion as the core of evil, heterosexuals seeing gay marriages as the ultimate threat to society, liberals invested in some current political correctness while living lives of rather total isolation from the actual suffering of the world, and Bible thumpers ignoring most of the Bible when it asks them to change, and a nation of immigrants being anti-immigrant, etc. I could go on forever. We see that the ego is still in charge, and it just wears different disguises on both the left and on the right of most people and most issues. It is the imperial ego that has to go, and only powerlessness can do the job correctly. Bill Wilson recognized that very early in the 12-step program. Otherwise, we try to engineer our own transformation by our own rules and by our own power, which is, by definition, therefore, not transformational. It seems we can in no way engineer or steer our own conversion. We will try to change our ego with the help of our ego. We only have a better disguised ego. As physicist Albert Einstein frequently said in a different way, no problem can be solved by the same consciousness that caused the problem in the first place. Jesus used the metaphors of a grain of wheat or a branch cut off from the vine for this arrogant ego. Paul used the unfortunate word flesh, which made most think that he was talking about the body. So some Bible translations now call it self-indulgence, which is much closer to the meaning. But both Jesus and Paul were pointing to the isolated and protected small self, and they both said it had to go. Unless the grain of wheat falls on the ground and dies, it remains only a single grain. But if it dies, it will yield a great and a rich harvest. John 12:24. For Paul, the flesh or ego cannot get you where you want to go. Galatians 5 verse 19. It concerns are too small and too selfish. An ego response is always an inadequate or even a wrong response to the moment. It will not deepen or broaden life, love, or inner laughter. Your ego self is always attached to more externals, mere externals, since it has no inner substance of itself. The ego defines itself by its attachments and revulsions. The soul does not attach, nor does it hate. It desires and loves and lets go. Please think about that. It can change your very notion of religion. All mature spirituality is about letting go. As many teachers of the 12 steps have said, the first step is probably the hardest, the most denied, and the most avoided. So the whole process never takes off. No one likes to die to who they think they are. Their false self is all they have. As Trappist monk and spiritual writer Thomas Merton writes in New Seeds of Contemplation, this classic of Merton's is still probably the best clarification of what we mean to the true self and the false self. Letting go is not in anybody's program for happiness, and yet all mature spirituality is, in one sense or another, about letting go and unlearning. You can take that as an absolute. As German mystic philosopher Meister Eckhart said, the spiritual life has much more to do with subtraction than it has to do with addiction. What the ego hates more than anything else in the world is to change, even when the present situation is not working or is horrible. Instead, we do more and more of what does not work, as many others have rightly said about addicts. And I would say about all of us. The reason we do anything one more time is because the last time it was not really satisfactory. It didn't satisfy us deeply. As English poet W.H. Auden put it, in Apropos of Many Things, we would rather be ruined than changed. We would rather die in our dread than climb the cross of the present and our illusions die. And let our illusions die. Chapter 2, Desperate Desiring. So the second step in the AA program is come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So some biblical references. The God of old is still your refuge. This God has everlasting arms that can drive out the enemy before you. That's Deuteronomy 33:27. Yes, we are carrying our own death warrant with us, but it is still teaching us not to rely on ourselves, but on a God whose task is to raise the dead to life. 2 Corinthians 1 verse 9. And then the last one, while he was still a long way off, the father saw him and was moved with pity. He ran to the boy, clasped him in his arms and kissed him tenderly. I think that's the prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son, Luke 15:21. Step 2 in is the necessary longing, delaying and backsliding that invariably precedes the full-blown leap of faith. The statement is wise enough to use an active verb to describe the step. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The surrender of faith does not happen in one moment, but is an extended journey, a trust walk, a gradual letting go, unlearning and handing over. No one does it on the first or even the second try. Desire and longing must be significantly deepened and broadened. To finally surrender ourselves to healing, we have to have 3 spaces opened up within us, and all at the same time. Our opinionated head, our closed down heart, and our defensive and defended body. That is the work of spirituality, and it is work. Yes, it is finally the work of a power greater than ourselves, and it will lead to great luminosity and the depth of seeing. That is why true faith is one of the most holistic and free actions a human can perform. It leads to such broad and deep perception that most traditions would just call it light. Remember, Jesus said that we were the light of the world also, Matthew 5, verse 14, and not just himself, John 8, verse 12. Christians often forget this. Such luminous seeing is quite the opposite of the closed-mindedness and the dead heart and the body-denying thing that much religions has allowed faith to become. As you have surely heard before, religion is lived by people who are afraid of hell. Spirituality, however, is lived by people who have been through hell. That's a nice quote. The innocuous mental belief system of much religions are probably the major cause of atheism in the world today, because people see that they have not generally created people who are more strong, caring, or creative than other groups, and often a lot worse. I wish I did not have to say that, but religion either produces the very best people or the very worst. Jesus makes this point in many settings and stories. Mere mental belief systems split people apart, whereas actual faith puts all of our parts, body, heart, head, on notice and on call, and offers us a new broadband station with full surround sound instead of a static-filled monotone. Honestly, it takes major surgery and much of one's life to get head, heart, and body to put down their defenses, their false programs for happiness, and their many forms of resistance to what is right in front of them. This is the meat and the muscle of the whole conversion process. As hard as it is to believe, many formally religious people do not believe in the reality of spirit in any active or effective way. They think it is their job to somehow teach, introduce, or win spirit, and they never get around to enjoying what is already and always there and actively on their side. Walter Wink, a professor of biblical interpretation, calls it the mere theological worldview as opposed to the incarnational worldview, which is authentic Christianity. When all of us is there, you will know. When all of you is present, the banquet will begin. But as Jesus said in his many banquet stories, we all find our very proper excuses why not to come to anything so free, so spacious, and so available to all. There is still more room, he says at the end. See Luke 14, verse 15 and 24. Many seem to be put off by the fact that the invitation list includes both the good and the bad. Matthew 22, verse 10. The ego or the flesh would prefer to join a private country club or a gated community whereas Peter will say, God has made it clear to me that I must not call anyone profane or unclean. Acts chapter 10, verse 28, although it took him a while to get there himself. When all three inner spaces are open and listening together, we can always be present. To be present is to know what you need to know in the moment. To be present to something is to allow the moment, the person, the idea, or the situation to change you. Opening three inner spaces. I will describe the three openings briefly here, but I am encouraging any reader to seek other resources to deepen each of these disciplines. To keep the mind space open, we need some form of contemplative or meditative practice. This has been the most neglected in recent centuries, substituting a mere reciting or saying of prayers, which is not the same as contemplative mind, and often merely confirms us in our superior and fear-based system. Step 11 was wise enough to name prayer and meditation as necessary to the process. So I personally describe contemplation as non-dual consciousness, and I find that it's necessary to overcome the stinking thinking of the most addicts, which tend to be all or nothing thinkers. One could say the authentic spirituality is invariably a matter of emptying the mind and filling the heart at the same time. To keep the heart space open, we need several things. First, we almost all need some healing in regard to our caring. To keep the heart space open, we need several things. First, we almost all need some healing in regard to our carried hurts from the past. The church's somewhat strange word for this was original sin, which we were told was not something we were personally guilty of, but something that was done to us and passed from generation to generation. No point in blaming anybody. It is, if it was not one thing, it was another. The Enneagram, the personality profile that Richard Rohr uses, is one marvelous spiritual tool that names the 9 most common programs for happiness, or strategies for survival. It reveals that we are all wounded in our feeling function in one way or another. Each type is invariably half right, but also half wrong. And it's important that we recognize the half wrong side so that the good side can be set free. Also, we need to be in right relationship with people so that other people can love us and touch us at deeper levels. And so we can love and touch them. Nothing else opens up the heart space in such a positive and ongoing way. Unfortunately, step 4 through 10 are precisely named to make that possible. And we will talk about this more in subsequent chapters. So finally, I think the heart space is often opened by right brain activities such as music, art, dance, nature, fasting, poetry, games, life-affirming sexuality, and, of course, the art of relationship itself. Mass murderers are invariably loners who participate in none of these things, but merely ruminate and retreat to their head and their explanations. I can think of times when I was celebrating Mass in proper form, but with a hidden cold heart, and only when I moved into the congregation and received their genuine smiles and warm hugs did I even realize that my heart had been hardened before. Suddenly, it was carrying and connecting again. That is the rub of any conversion experience. You only know how much you needed it when you're going through it and when you're at the other side. That is why you need the tenacity of faith and hope to carry you across the most transformational experiences. When you can let others actually influence you and change you, your heart space is open. And to be fully honest, I think your heart needs to be broken and broken open, at least once, to have a heart at all, or to have a heart for others. As Simeon told Mary, a sword will pierce your heart, so that the secret thoughts of many will be laid bare. That's written in Luke chapter 2, verse 35. To keep our bodies less defended, to live in our body right now, to be present to others in a cellular way, is always the work of healing of past hurts and the many memories that they seem to store themselves in the body. The body seems never to stop offering its messages, but fortunately the body never lies, even though the mind will deceive you constantly. Zen practitioners tend to be well trained in seeing this. It's very telling that Jesus usually physically touches people when he healed them. He knew where the memory and hurt was lodged, and it was in the body itself. Any massage therapist knows the power of healing touch, and surely it is part of the function of healthy sexual encounters, exercise, the importance of hugging, and why it is so important to protect children from any negative or fearful body messages. The body knows and the body remembers. It has always deeply disappointed me that the Christian religion was the only one that believed God became a human body, and yet we have had such deficient and frankly negative attitudes towards embodiment, the physical world, sexuality, emotions, animals, healthy physical practices like yoga and nature itself. It often seems to me that Western Christianity has been much more formed by Plato, body and soul are at war, than by Jesus, body and soul are already one. For many of us, the body is more repressed and denied than even the mind or the heart. The body is like the ignored middle child in the family unit, and so now it's having the revenge through so much compulsive eating, sexuality, anorexia, and addiction, plus a wholesale disregard for the physical planet, animal, water, healthy foods. In every way, we seem to be fouling our own nest, because after all, this nest does not really matter. Salvation is merely an evacuation plan for the next world. There has been little belief in what the Bible offers, which is both a new heaven and a new earth too. Revelations 21, verse 1. So the work of spirituality is the ongoing liberation of the head, the heart, and the body towards full luminous seeing and living, and not a mere mental decision for Jesus or the one-time insurance policy of sacraments received. Most head churches do not touch the heart, and most heart churches do not bother with the head, and almost all of them ignore the body as if of no account. Further, the head churches are usually not contemplative. The heart churches have little discrimination or training in more subtle emotions, whereby we see truthfully, and the body people have either left the church or, even worse, stay in the pew but do not take it seriously as anything real, urgent, or wonderful. Reconnecting head, heart, and body. If we are to come to believe that a greater power than ourselves can restore us to sanity, then we will come to the belief of developing the capacity for a simple, clear, and uncluttered presence. Those who can be present with head, heart, and body at the same time will always encounter the presence, whether they call it God or not. For the most part, those skills are learned by letting life come at us on its own terms, and not resisting the wonderful underlying mystery that is everywhere all the time and offered to us all. God comes to us disguised as our life. As spiritual writer and retreat leader Paula Darcy so beautifully puts it in her talks and retreats, all we can do is to keep out of the way, note, and weep over our defense behaviors, keep our various centers from closing down, and the presence that is surely the highest power is then obvious, all-embracing, and immediately effective. The immediate embrace is from God's side. The ineffectiveness is whatever time it takes for us to come to believe, which is to show the gradual healing and reconnecting of head, heart, and body so they can operate as one. Both movements are crucial. The healing of ourselves and the healing of our always limited and even toxic image of God. This of itself will often reconnect all three parts of our humanity into a marvelous receiving station. A true God experience really does save us, because it's always better than we thought we could ever expect or earn. Let's end with a blessing from St. Paul, who recognized these three parts of the human person in the very first letter. May the God of peace make you whole and holy. May you be kept safe in body, heart, and mind, and thus ready for the presence. God has called you, and he will not fail you. That's in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 23. And this concludes chapter 2 of Breathing Underwater with Richard. So when Richard Rohr talks about the three areas that we need to receive healing, open up, and let go, I would say that that's really helpful to, if you understand what that means for you personally. So if you want to go through a test, if you want to do like a free online test to kind of like get you up to speed for our next gathering, I would encourage you to do the DISC personality test, and I will put a link under this video. So if you're looking at this video, then in the description below you will find a link to the DISC personality profile test, which helps you to identify where you're at, where you struggle with most, or where you're most attracted to when it comes to your behavior. Are you more of a head, a heart, or a body person? So DISC doesn't say you're a head person, you're a heart person, or you're a body person, but it will allow me to translate that into those three areas. So if you're planning to come to the gathering, the next event that we're doing for this book, check out our Facebook page. It's Cosmic X Change. So if you look for that, you will find our events. And the next one is on Saturday, I think, yeah, next Saturday. So let us know if you're coming so that we can prepare some food for you. Let's talk about this. How do you feel about this? What have you come to understand, and what is your experience? All right, talk to you later. See you there.